Welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan here. For today, what can I say? We have again the incredible, the amazing, the badass, the superstar, the legendary, the one and only Randy. Randy, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
You're fantastic. What better way, right? To have an incredible, badass day, but most important, to have an incredible starting up the weekend, to be chatting with someone as badass as you, right?
Yeah, we love a Friday. We love going into the weekend on a positive, happy note. And this
There you
seems
go.
like a great place to start.
Sounds like a plan. I love it. Now, before we start, I do want to thank those who are tuned in here. Thanks so much. If you're new to the channel, well, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow. Helps a lot. But most important, on the description below, you're going to find all of Randy's social media. Let's follow her. Let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Randy. If you want to find out why she's a total badass, also the description below, you're going to find the previous interview that I had with her. So you can find out and be like, oh, okay, now I understand why she's a badass. And without further more. So for this episode, I'm just gonna ask you a couple of questions here, right? To see how the whole entertainment, like how you see the whole, entertainment industry to be in the next 10 years, for example, right?
Yeah.
So this is gonna be an interesting topic, and without further more, let's jump in. So by starting on this conversation, here's the first question, right? So with the rise of streaming platforms and on-demand content, how do you foresee the future of traditional cinema over the next 10 years?
Yeah, it's really tough to see because it's kind of been a bit of a cycle. In my opinion, my thoughts and the way that I've seen it from growing up to now, it's been a bit of a cycle. So we had like classical cable television that was, producing content, weekly shows. You couldn't like get a whole season and straight like binge it. You had to then buy it on disc or CD or DVD. And then we moved into the streaming platform, which almost made classical cable null and void. I mean, some generations still have it, and like I don't have it. Sorry, cable. But like we now have classic cable TV on streaming services. Like you have things like Stack TV and those network shows that are on Prime Video. And now we're seeing these packages that are coming out, which are like you can get Netflix, Prime, Crave all together in this one package. You just have to pay one fee for it, which is exactly what cable used to be. So if we kind of apply streaming services similar to what we are seeing in like theater, when we had the pandemic, and I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but like when it was largely like the top of everything and everything was closed, we were seeing a lot of films that were supposed to be going into theaters straight on streaming. And we saw a lot of the revenue go straight to the streaming services. And there was a lot of things that were not quite working in that way. So now that we're kind of, then we saw kind of the double. So Disney was releasing a lot of things in theater as well as on streaming services. And again, they didn't really like that. It didn't really work. People were not really happy about that. And I think with things like the Barbie movie, Oppenheimer, the Taylor Swift Eras tour going into the theaters and how much money those are making, I think what people are craving right now is community. And I think seeing things in theaters, you find that community. There's nothing like being in a theater, laughing, crying, being around other people that are experiencing the film in the same way that you are. And I think we're seeing those numbers are still where they were at 10, 15 years ago for seeing things in cinema. So I think it's going to make a comeback. I think it's going to continue to be something that people are wanting to see. So I think whether streaming services are kind of taking a bit more of a streamlined approach, but I think traditional cinema is still going to be a big thing for people. Yeah. I feel like it's kind of come full circle a little bit. It's a circular motion, and I don't think it's going to be streaming for that. I think we're going to continue to find those moments.
Yeah, that's right. I do think that cinemas will stick forever, basically. And it's true. It's awesome whenever you go to see a film and you find like the community there and you find their reactions, like it's a total different feeling that if you watch it at home, totally. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, you're a singular person when you're watching it at home or like your friends or whatever. But seeing it with strangers and experiencing those same emotions with a bunch of other people really makes you feel not alone in the world. And I think people still crave that, especially after what we've just been through for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. Now, moving on here for the next question here, how do you think advancements in technology like deepfake AI and virtual reality will influence the acting profession?
I mean, I think we're still fighting it, and I think we continually will fight it. I was thinking a lot about this morning, and obviously a lot as I work. Um, but I think we've come to a time in the industry where people, writers, actors, directors, producers are now, we've brought in a lot of diversity, a lot of different voices that are being allowed to tell their own stories from their own lived experiences rather than somebody writing a story based on something they've seen. And it almost feels like the AI that's coming in, somebody's writing a program who AI is never going to have that lived experience. So they're never going to be able to tell that story in the way that it needs to be told. So I think that's a big reason why the fight is so big right now, is that the stories that we're telling are coming from our experiences and coming from a human perspective that AI just can't match. I don't know what it's going to look like. Unfortunately, I know like people are having a lot of fun doing their like AI portraits and stuff like that, which is super cool. But the world is filled with artists, and I think as long as we stay on that track, we should be okay. But it's just a matter of making sure that the human experience comes before the monetary experience.
Yeah, that's true. That is something. Yeah, that is important thing too. And the fact, and I would also, yeah, I would say also that the whole fact that that the audience, I mean, at some point also the audience is gonna beg for more realistic, realistic stories, things like that. They can that somehow they can empathize. So yeah, I do think that the whole AI stuff at some point perhaps is not gonna cut it anymore because we need real stories, not stories made by an AI. That perhaps, yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe at some point it will create an AI could create something really, really good, but it's not the same as that, oh, so this story was created by this guy who wrote it, right? Oh, that is so interesting, instead of by an AI, will be like, oh, cool.
Yeah, and I think like we have seen a decrease in this like so-called celebrity of like the 90s and 2000s, and more into an increase of artists that are making art, making films, making TV, making short form. And it's AI is only going so far because AI can only create this celebrity or create this film that it knows because it's written again by a programmer.
Yeah.
And not no hurt to the programmers. They're amazing people who do amazing work, but AI can't really write something from the heart from a program. It has to come from a human experience, I think.
It's not the same connection, even though that perhaps it will look similar, but it's not the same feeling. Yeah, I can understand that. And also with the music as well. Perhaps they could create this incredible song, which sounds good, but it's not the same. It's like this feeling I can't really know. I mean, I don't know like how to explain it, but like this feeling that once you hear something or see something, you get instantly inspired. Like that thing. I don't think also that an AI will be able to kind of replicate that.
Yeah, it's like the difference between seeing Tupac live and seeing a Tupac hologram, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're always going to know the difference when it's not the real thing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And with many actors transitioning to roles behind the camera, right? Such as directors or producers as well. Do you see this trend kind of intensifying in the future?
Yeah, I really do. I think I work in a community a lot in Vancouver where we are everything across the board. We're producers, we're directors, we always say the first thing that we are first, and then, but I also do this. So like I'm primarily an actor, but I also write and I also produce. I have friends who are primarily actors, but they also direct and they also produce. And I think we're just becoming these well-rounded people in the artist industry who when we're creating a story, we really want to bring it from all perspectives. We really want to see it happen from everywhere. And also sometimes we have a story that we want to be told that making films costs a lot of money. So sometimes we don't have the funding there, so we have to find it or do it ourselves. We really want this story to be out there. We really want people to see it, so we just do it ourselves. And I think it's really important, and it's really nice that we're all supporting each other in doing that as well. Like you want to try directing for the first time? Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I've seen, I mean, most of the actors that I've interviewed, like most of them are, now that I'm thinking of it, it's true. Most of them are writing as well, directing as well, producing as well. Some of them perhaps will take a break for a little bit so they can jumping into the whole directing. So yeah, it's true. With the rise of streaming platforms and on-demand content, tell me, how do you see, like how do you foresee the future of traditional cinema over the next 10 years?
Very dangerous.
Okay.
With like how AI is and deepfake is going, I feel like they're really trying to replace human beings.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen Randy or Dan, the trend of like AI influencers where you see them popping up on your content, regular human beings. They look so real, going through life, doing lifestyle things. Um, and it's just so confusing. Is that a real person or not? But the thing that they miss is that human beings are not perfect and AI is so picture perfect. And I feel it will, like, generations growing up and watching that will just, they will always have that feeling of like, oh, they're not enough because they're seeing standards of beauty or standards of certain things that are not actually human.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So imagine that on screen, all the generations growing up and watching that, like it's not good. Already there's a lot of like AI tools and softwares to enhance the performance of actors. They like analyze scripts and analyze breakdowns and facial expressions and voice, and they're meant to replace voice coaches, acting coaches, accent coaches, readers. But they miss on the whole like emotional nuance that a human being has.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just gonna keep getting, they're gonna keep developing the tools. Deepfake is a whole level of dangerous. Like you're just gonna be confused if it's real or not, and you'll never be able to tell the difference. Like there's a few years ago, I did a short film about like that specific topic of deepfake. Like if it was in the hands of people with bad intentions, like scammers or whatever, and they did the deepfake on an authority figure
Mm-hmm,
on
mm-hmm.
national level, the impact, it's gonna be catastrophic. So yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
saw. I had an episode like a couple of months ago in which we were talking about this whole AI stuff, and we were one
yeah.
of those topics was the fact that the whole AI stuff could be dangerous, if they use it to deliver like a political message, and something like that. And unfortunately, it's too bad that there's people who believes 100% want like what they see on their phones, so that can be dangerous. And but moving a little bit with the whole entertainment, I mean, I do think, and we were talking about that, Randy and I, a couple of minutes ago, that I do think that even though the AI could be like super well developed, it at some point it would be really hard to like, what is the word here? To kind of replace like the human touch, you know what I mean? To kind of,
Yeah,
like that type of stuff,
because like human beings need connection and they connect
Exactly.
like all these like flaws and imperfections of whatever it is, performance or looks or all, like this is how human beings connect to each other.
Totally.
So yeah, it is definitely necessary. On the other hand, virtual reality, I feel it will be offering like opportunities for
Mm-hmm.
filmmakers in like a creative way, which is not harmful. I also did a project a few years ago where in like it was interactive storytelling, so the viewer would have, like, depending on the choices that they do throughout watching, the plot would change. So in each scenario we would film like two different outcomes. So
Yeah.
then yeah, like that was interesting because like it's creative, and virtual reality is going to keep on growing, and I feel like if blockbusters actually dig there, like it will be changing for the entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's positive, on the positive note.
Yeah. And with many actors transitioning to roles behind the camera, right? Such as directors or producers as well. Do you see this trend intensifying in the future?
I never saw it as like a trend. I feel like it's just a natural arc for performers who already have those skills and vision.
Mhm.
And once they, went through their acting career, they're established and they're like, oh, I actually want to give it a shot into producing or directing. And it's just like, it's been happening before, and I feel it's just going to carry on happening depending on the person, if they have those skills or not. And it's all about storytelling. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
also telling Randy that not that when she was answering this question, that it's interesting because for most actors that I've interviewed, most of them, they do either writing, producing, and directing as well, or some of them have taken a break into the whole acting and move straight like to directing or producing, which is
Yeah.
cool because at the same time you get a chance to explore different, like different realms, let's say, in the same place, but also you get the chance to see things in a different perspective, right?
Mm. Yeah. Um, like if you're already in that world, like let's
Hmm.
say actors have been working for like 10, 20 years or whatever, like they're seeing it all. They're in that world and they're like, okay, now I want to take on the other role. It's just more exciting, they want to try new shoes.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think it's great.
that's fun. Love it. Now, moving on to the next question here, and with this one, we're kind of on the same
Awesome.
page here, which is great. So, as the world becomes more environmentally conscious, how might the industry adapt in terms of film production practices and on set sustainability? Who wants to go first?
Randy, do you want to go first? Because I felt like I talked for hours.
No, you're good. I mean, I talked for hours before you got here, so I mean, there is currently, like in BC, we have sustainability practices that are in and more that are coming in, especially for union productions, where you have to abide by certain sustainability and laws or practices, or they give you PDF spreadsheets on how to increase that for yourself and for your production. So we're already sort of seeing that come into play. And again, I feel like coming out of the years where the industry was shut down, it was a little bit tough because we were having to do single serves of everything. So everything was like for like crafty, and like lots of plastic was being done for like hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, all that kind of stuff. So we did kind of increase our environmental footprints on that, but coming sort of on this side of it, where people are feeling a little bit more comfortable sharing certain things and not fully masking, we can now sort of turn around and figure out how to decrease the impacts that those have had on our sets. And with like jumping back to the streaming services, and people like we're not producing things like DVDs and like videos and things like that, which are not, they don't break down, right? So we're seeing less of those going into the environment and more like we're able to get it just on our devices themselves.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a matter of the heads of studios, the people who are in charge of the money, to be able to help us along the way, because we can only do so much with the amount of funds that we have going into the productions. So yeah.
It is like true that like the bigger studios have the most like carbon footprint. And I think I might be wrong on that, but I think the films that follow a certain like sustainability practices are called like green films, where there would be like a sustainable manager.
Sorry, I just had a
Yeah.
knock on my door. I'll be right back.
Oh,
Yeah.
no worries. They would be there would be a sustainability manager. They would use solar panels. They would use everyone has to use reusable water bottles. Like plastic water bottles are not allowed. Plastic containers, like single serve use, like she was saying, like they really like manage food waste. And at the same time, when they build the studio, because then like they build a set and then they finish shooting and they destroy it, that's kind of not allowed. They like want to build it for long-term use
Mhm.
or for use where like maybe other studios can use it. So it's all about like pre-planning and managing on a bigger scale all this, the sets, the props, whatever we're going to use, how we're going to make it reusable or long term. So yeah, it has happened for a few productions, and I feel like going on, it will keep, like, I feel like a sustainability manager on set would be required. And everyone's collaboration is required, because that's the only way that it's going to work. So yeah, I think we're positive on that. They just, like, the bigger studios need to take that like extremely seriously, because climate change. So yeah.
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 Absolutely. Okay. And do you anticipate a shift in the type of stories and narratives that will be popular or prioritized in the next decade?
I feel that the stories, like, have been changing throughout, depending on the growth of the human experience, and like how, you know, a lot of things are coming to light that maybe older generations did not care about. So mental health is a discussion now, where we're seeing a lot of it. There's, at a certain point, still, like, in a lot of productions, like, coming out of the closet, accepting, really normalizing the queer community. This is all, like, storytelling, and the films are helping that, so that the younger generations watch it and just, you know, this is the norm. So it's constantly going to keep growing, depending on where human beings head, you know. So everything against racism, against any kind of judgment, just like acceptance, mental health, like, so I feel it's just going to keep heading there, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like as different and younger generations are taking over the filmmaking and taking over the stories, we're going to be seeing a lot of different ones that are coming out. I think, again, we're kind of going back to that, the stories that people are telling through their own lived experiences are being funded and able to be made. So and we're also seeing a lot of this, there was quite a trend of films about, like, mental health and diversity, and from diverse voices, were kind of being told from a lens of trauma, and now we're getting to see those stories being told in joy, and like different views and different angles of the stories, and it's really nice to be able to actually just watch them.
Yeah.
And being able to, like, have the people who these really affected be a part of the stories and be in a leader role in the stories that are told. So I think that's just going to continually change, and more people that are growing up and more people that are coming out and getting into the industry. Like, we're so saturated right now in such a beautiful way, because we have so many films that are coming out that are so different than what we've seen before, and even the ones that are being retold are being told so differently than we've seen them.
Yeah. And this is how, like, the connections are built, like the audiences watching, you know, diverse voices taking on leads. They can connect with them on a just like a human level, where when they were seen in like a victim attitude, if you've never experienced that, you're never going to be able to connect. So there's always like that wall in between. So just really normalizing that is just going to enhance that connection, like just as human beings, which is great.
I love it. Yes, and I'm very look forward for the story for, and yeah, I look forward, and it makes me wonder, like, the type of stories that we're gonna see in the future, which I love it. And I think that is also due to the fact that now the world is kind of connected, you know, as 70, 80 years back, which it was like a little bit difficult, but now with the whole social media and everything, it's easier for everyone to kind of raise their hand and tell a story. And who knows, maybe with that they can create a film or something in which we can totally see and understand certain problem or certain situation that back then perhaps we didn't take it into consideration, you know. So I think that is something cool that it's happening, and it's gonna get better, you know. So
Yeah.
For sure. I completely agree. And we're seeing less of like a celebrity mindset, like I was saying before, and we're seeing more of an artistic mindset in films, which is is super cool to watch.
Yeah.
And how do you think the role of film festivals will evolve? You know, given the increasing and the accessibility of digital platforms for showing casting new talent.
I think there's always going to be a space for film festivals. It's always a place to get not only a larger platform, but again, kind of going back to films are expensive to make. And these festivals who have been running for so long and the new festivals that are popping up, it's a way to fund and get more exposure to the people who are paying for the films. So we see a lot of trend, like I work with local film festivals here in Vancouver, and we see a big trend of people doing teaser trailers for the film festivals to get funding for their features. And I mean, there's a lot of politics that go into film festivals. So I think we're going to see more of a rise in the smaller festivals with the newer filmmakers being able to show their stuff and get a large audience for it, rather than kind of getting a little bit buried on some of the streaming services. Like I know people who've made really wonderful films that are on Prime Video and nobody's seen them because you can't find it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's always going to be a place for them, whether or not they're going to be the most important thing or the one thing to strive for anymore, I don't know. But I think there's always going to be an important place for film festivals for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like they're just gonna stay there in 10 years. Like we're still gonna have the film festivals, the bigger one. And like as you were saying, there's a lot of like festivals where they want to see proof of concept. And that's just like they're creating that platform and opportunities for people to network and connect to get funding. So with how the streaming services are going, like I feel like it's just gonna keep on growing on that end. So yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. Now, next question here. With mental health becoming a prominent discussion, do you see the industry adopting practices or policies to support actors and crews well-being more effective?
Yes.
I do. Absolutely.
100%. I feel like there was a big important push and increase and thing when we brought in intimacy coordinators. Like I think that was such an important decision to make intimacy coordinators a standard practice, required practice on films. And fight coordinators, and sometimes you'll have an entire team of intimacy coordinators, because we are looking to stop the problem before it starts, stop the effects before they take effect.
Yeah.
And I think as we're going into more contract negotiations, actors, directors, writers, producers, anybody who's working on the film now feels more empowered to speak up for themselves. And we're also taking time after the film to kind of rest and recuperate, because those roles, any artistic role is tough. It's tough on your nervous system sometimes. And I think we're going into a world where it's important for us to allow that to be seen, and allow ourselves to take rest. And we're feeling allowed to do that now.
Yeah, it is like long days on set, a lot of stress. Some people experience separation anxiety. Some people have financial insecurities. There's so many things where on a long period of time, there's shooting every day, long hours. This is definitely necessary. And I think already, like in the UK, a lot of productions have like therapists on set or virtual, like a platform for them to schedule virtual therapy sessions for the crew and cast. So already it started. I don't think it started yet, and it's like very common in the US or Canada, but I feel like it would head there. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary for sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of ours start, like especially in Vancouver, because we're kind of a working town for US productions. Toronto's a little bit different because they do a lot of Canadian productions. But Vancouver, especially, a lot of our stuff comes up from the States. So we don't quite have that there. Although our union, we're voting on our board of directors for UBCP right now. And a lot of their platforms, or what they're kind of putting forward, is here's what we want to see happen. And a lot of it is giving artistic people more time to rest and more sources to be able to work through what they're going through. So I think we are trying really hard to make sure everybody's really taken care of because of the amount of toll it takes on your mind and your body to do.
I've seen someone share on social media the other day, because like the actors were going, like, there's the strike happening and like no one's working or auditioning. There was that phase where they shared resources for mental health. It was like not maybe free but affordable counseling for artists and creatives, and it was like very, you know, thoughtful that this already exists. Especially when like on set the topic being filmed is very maybe triggering or traumatizing, like it is necessary.
Absolutely.
Totally agree on that. You know, the other day I had this conversation with an actress that she lives in Germany, and she was telling me that that they have like a different regulations, because whenever they want to shoot a film, the production has to oblige by the like a regular job regulation, you know, like a proper salary, a proper time, you know, like hours for work, things like that, not to like expand it, you know, like things like that. And I do think that also the strike also has shows those who are not in the industry, you know, the abuses and the over and the you know, like the whole overwork and things like that, that perhaps we didn't know about that. So that was a good thing, because now we understand the problem, be like, okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Or like we totally didn't knew that, you know, that for just one take on set could take you 10, 12, 14 hours sometimes, you know, or things might happen, the salaries, things like that. So I do appreciate that this is happening, because it opened our eyes more, and to be like, okay, this is definitely a discussion that everyone needs to take and everyone needs to pay attention to, because I mean, right now with the whole acting industry, but who knows, maybe next time we'll jump to other sector and things like that. So
like in Lebanon, when I was working, I did hear about suicide stories of crew members, and also I've been through days where we filmed for like 23 hours.
That's
and like
crazy.
You know, like being in front of the camera after 23 hours being awake, like I was shaking, like this is not okay. So absolutely it is. I'm glad that this part of the world takes it more seriously, but yeah, it is essential.
And it's nice that like you said, the stories are coming out, and it's our unions are really standing together. Like we're very supportive of each other and fighting for the rights that we are fighting for, and because we're all in this together, because we want everybody to be able to be a part of this in an equal way.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not only the actors, right? We're talking about the whole crew behind, you know, the makeup, the sound, all of that. So it's really good that this conversation was arise and everyone has paying their attention to it. And also it is great that A-list actors has also like joining in, you know, so they can gather their audience, their brand, let's say, so more people can reach and know about the situation. Because it's crazy, because at the end of the day, they're not asking something crazy, they're just asking something fair. And I do think that if you're asking for fair treatment, what's the problem here, you know? I mean, it should be agreed, and it should be understandable that you want a fair treatment on whatever you're doing, because at the end of the day, for example, with the acting, it's a craft and everything, but it's also a job at the end of the day, right? So
yeah absolutely.
Great. Now, moving on here to the next question. Tell me, how do you feel about the rise of short form content? You know, like what we see on TikTok or YouTube. Do you think, like, will this influence the type of content produced or the length of films or shows in the future?
Well, how I see it is the generations, the current and future, like our attention spans are short and are going to keep getting shorter because of the content that we're consuming. It's very like you got to keep us engaged. I don't know if you've mentioned that when you were talking about the streaming services, but like the format to go to was series. Like, this is the format of content that it's going, like, whether it's docu-series or series, and there are shorter episodes, but you can binge for hours straight. It doesn't matter. But like, that is the format that I feel like it's just going to keep evolving. The 3.5 hours movies, I don't see it as much as on the rise. Unless it's like a whole experience that where you can just watch it in the theaters. But it definitely would take me, I think I've been watching a movie just for a character research for a project I'm working on, and it's taken me 3 days already and I haven't finished it yet. So it's like, yeah. So I feel like it would just continue to be like series, maybe shorter formats, but more episodes. Yeah. What do you think, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. Like, we are kind of coming into a point where instead of like 7, 8, 9 series with like 10 episodes or 30 episodes per series that we used to have, now it's kind of like we've gone to like, it's 4 seasons of like 11 episodes per series, and we're even kind of scaling that back to like limited series, 1 season of like 35-minute episodes, and then the story is told. And like, I do see films as well are kind of like shortening up. Like, we'll get the odd one, like again, Oppenheimer or Barbie, which were like 2.5, 3 hours. People will see it in theaters, but I don't foresee that being a popular streaming one, because people just, when you're at home, you're doing other things, like you're wandering around, it's not the experience of being in the theater. Like, a lot of people wanted to see Oppenheimer in IMAX. Like, a lot of people waited for it to come out in IMAX because it was the experience of seeing that. So I do think, like, what I don't think, like, Tubi's not as popular, like, it didn't really work out because they had like the short form ones, which were like 11, 12-minute long. It's made to be done on a phone. So I think it's kind of, we're looking for a happy medium right now, which I think we're finding in like the limited series and the like 4-season long stories being told over series. But yeah, I mean, I wander around when I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh, I missed that part the first time because I didn't actually watch it.
Play back,
Yeah. Or I'm like on Instagram while I'm like watching a show. Like, I'm 99 right now, and I'm like on episode at like 12 of like the 3rd season, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on because I've been most of it.
I have the special series that just go for the background.
Yeah.
I do stuff and that runs in the background.
Yeah, me too. Community is mine. Like, I think I've seen that about 30 times. And I just like, I know it off heart now, so I can just have it as background noise.
Yeah, I think we all do that. So yeah, that's cool. But so then, that being said, so then the cinema will stay forever, somehow will stay forever, right? Because of the whole experience that delivers, right? As you mentioned, Randy, with the whole Oppenheimer, that watching an IMAX was a mind-blowing experience. It was beautiful. So I think with the cinemas, they will stay because you want to see the experience, and if later that film is on a streaming service, you'll be like, okay, cool. But you saw you got the ultimate experience, which was a cinema, right? So.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, you go for it.
I watched the first Avatar on an airplane. Like, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw the first Avatar on an airplane screen, so like this big, and I was like, that would have been really cool to see in theater. So when The Way of Water came out, I saw it in IMAX, and I was like, this is so good. So much better. So I really do think like we're still creating those types of like big experience films that people want to see, and they want to see them together.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I wanted to add that when a series have like such a big audience and the traffic is there, I feel that the cinemas are going to be using that for like showing in the cinema, like the, I don't know, season finale or just like TV shows in a way, because there's that buzz around it and everyone want to like, go watch the finale in the movies. So they're definitely going to stay there. They're just going to work on the experience and using that accordingly, because I'm sure like the tools are just going to keep getting better and better, and the experience is going to keep getting more real.
Yeah, like I feel like there was talk about the last episode of Stranger Things, like the last episode of the Stranger Things series being in the theater, because the
Yeah.
last episode of the last season was like an hour and a half long or something like that. And each episode themselves are quite long. So I feel like there was talk about that being like more of a film to like
Yeah.
close off the
I think
series.
it happened for like Breaking Bad in the US or something. They showed like the finale in the movie theaters, and like it was packed. Everyone went there. So
Oh,
yeah.
I feel like Breaking Bad is really interesting one to bring into like the short form conversation, because I've actually never seen Breaking Bad all the way through. I've seen like I
Okay.
get that face all the time. But
Yeah.
I've seen like the first like 6 episodes of it, and it just like it was so slow because it's such a slow burner,
Yeah.
but it has such a huge fan base
Yeah.
that I think as long as you have an engaging story, an engaging cast, and like a heart to the writing, I
Yeah.
think it does go to show that people will sit through something that's slow and they will watch the screen waiting for something to happen, as long as you have all of that working for you. And I
Yeah,
think
I definitely went through that phase where it was like, I'm just gonna keep pushing through.
I gotta do that. I really do just
Through.
need to sit down and push through.
And then it was like, oh wow, what? You know,
And I
it's
think a
just getting
word of
better.
mouth on it is a really good thing, because people really will give you that face when you're like, I've never seen Breaking Bad all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, I promise I'll watch it. And then people do just sit through it. And then they get to the point where like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is so good.
Yeah, then it's like really exciting.
And do you anticipate any shifts in how actors are trained or educated for their careers in the future?
How they're trained or educated. I feel like it's just necessary, and it's just gonna keep staying necessary. I'm sure we've all heard of like the content creators having such a huge following, then they want to start an acting career and all that. Like that's purely business because they have the audience, and like investors and producers see it as money and that's what they want. Yes, but like it's a craft and there's no way around that. You gotta do the work, you gotta study it, you gotta you you don't become an artist before doing it for 10 years. That's the same principle. So I think actors will not let that happen, to just like let it fade away and like stop training and just do it for funsies. Like, no.
Yeah, I think it's I'm gonna liken this a little bit to Taylor Swift because of her re-recordings that she's doing right now. And there's a lot of like, this is what she sounded like before, and this is what she sounds like now. And the control and notes and smoothness of her voice now versus what you could hear when she was first starting, and she was like a trained, like very good trained singer back then, and now it's just like tenfold. It's really, really good. And I think it's the same thing with any art form, with anything that you do, you want to be good at, you train to do it, right? Like you're not going to like run a 35-mile marathon. I don't know that if that's how long marathons are, but like acting is a muscle. You have to continually train it. You have to continually like and work it so that you can be at your butteriest, your most smooth, your most agile when you're doing it. We study traditional, like I study traditional like script analysis and scene study and all that, and then I also train like more of a emotional response to it. And I think everybody has their different ways of doing it, and everybody's going to find something that works for them. But yeah, you can jump into it and see what happens, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but you will. I think most actors will eventually find training, and I completely agree. I don't think that's ever going to go away. Ever.
Oh, I was having a discussion before when they brought the topic of like, oh, what about child actors? Like they're so talented and successful. And someone said, well, I bet you on every set of a child actor being really good, there's a coach there that's training him. Because he was like, I was a coach myself on set. So like,
I know.
yeah, like it actually happened.
Yeah. And they like child actors are so interesting because they've not gone through the world yet, to like the world hasn't shut them down just yet. So they're still kind of in that like free to feel and do what they are doing.
Yeah.
Whereas like as adult actors, we have to train ourselves not to shut
Yeah.
down in the moment.
It has to be a sustainable art form, you know, and got to do the training to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I love it. Moving on to the next question. Here we go. As global politics and social issues become, like more intertwined with with the whole entertainment, do you see actors taking on more activist roles in the future?
I think we always have.
And
I
always
think through through art, through film, we've always been on the front lines of kind of telling stories that have happened in the world, political stories, changing the world stories. And there's also like a lot of the best activists are artists. Jane Fonda has been a like activist her entire life. And she's told stories along with that. So along with having this, you have a platform that you can use
for a
in a
purpose.
positive way. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, when they ask you like to dig into your why of like why you're doing what you do, and like at the core of that, there's like, because I want to have a voice, because I want to give a voice to my underrepresented community. There's so many things that are not being talked about and needs to be talked about. So I feel like most actors that I know have that like fire where like there's things that need to change, and this is like the platform that we need. It's either through art or through the exposure that we're going to use it for that benefit. Yeah.
All right. Now, given the competition and influx of content, do you think it will become easier or harder for new actors to break into the industry?
I think it depends on what your definition of breaking into the industry is.
Okay.
Are you talking
Yeah.
like celebrities like Scale A?
Yeah.
What are you referring to?
That's a good one, and you got me there. So okay, so it's for new actors to break into the industry, meaning that they start to get roles, in projects, big, small projects, like things like that. So
I think
yeah.
most actors most actors who we would like recognize their names now have started somewhere. They didn't just get a large role that we recognize them from, or rarely does that happen. I mean, it maybe happened in like the old Hollywood time where like
Not anymore.
yeah, there's a like Harrison Ford story where like he was a construction worker somewhere and that's how he got a role. But like I think most actors nowadays they start on like small short films. They start on student films. They start making their own stuff. They like film it on their iPhones and then they climb the ladder. Yeah, they're starting to make connections. They're being offered, or they're like getting a reputation for being working really well on set. And then you're going into like commercials, and then you're going into like single lines, and like you really do have to work your way up now. But I think for my definition of like breaking into the industry is I'm getting to work with all of the people that are on the ground here. I get to work with the film festivals. I get to work on set in some capacity. I get to work in theater, and I am in the industry as far as I'm concerned. But if you ask somebody in Toronto what my name was, they wouldn't know. But if you ask around Vancouver, they would probably know my name. So I think it depends on the community that you're around, what your definition of breaking into the industry is. And I think as long as you're willing to work for it, you're going to find your way.
Yeah. Gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely like, the point that you mentioned where it's like for me, my definition would be like where my full income coming from acting work. Which like that is the goal, like just full-time acting. But as well, like we've heard stories of like, I don't know, TikTok stars starring in this series and all that. Yes, great. That's not sustainable, in my opinion. I feel like if there's no foundation and suddenly there's a spotlight and like, oh, one night success, like how long is that gonna last? Not long, in my opinion. Like we're here for a lifetime. Like I don't mind. Like if I reach my goals by 50, like I'm happy with that. It's not like, oh, gotta have it now, spotlight, and then fades away. Like, it's not sustainable. So definitely the foundation has to be there, and I gotta keep doing it until you do it. And once you have that work ethic and you are not quitting and you just keep at it, there's no other way but for you to break into the industry.
And it's super cool when you get to be paid for the first time doing it. Like, I remember my first paycheck for being on set as an actor, and I was like, wow, like, I'm here, I'm doing this. Like, this is my break. But it doesn't stop. You just keep going back and keep doing it.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, I'll take it. Do you saw this interview with Seth Rogen in which he was saying, if you quit, no, if you don't quit, you might make it. But if you quit, you're never gonna make it.
The difference between the one who quit and the ones who don't quit are that the other ones just,
there you go.
Who make it and who don't make it, or the other ones quit.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think the role of importance of critiques and film critiques will change in the digital area in which everyone can be a reviewer now?
I feel like people can break or make a film with how things go, like from word to mouth. Like, if you hear that this film is horrible on all the platforms and everyone's shitting on it, you're probably not going to go want to watch it. Or like a series is not good, you probably don't want it started. Yeah. And on the other hand, if everyone's hyping it up and marketing or playing it really smart, like, everyone's going to go watch it. Like Barbie, what a magical marketing team. Like, they made such a, and obviously it was amazing. But yeah, it has its role.
Yeah. I feel like it's tough. Art's so subjective that, like, I mean, there are some things that are objectively bad and some things that are kind of just bad. But like, I think art is so subjective. So there's going to be things like there were some people who thought the Barbie movie, they picked it apart and they thought it was horrible, from everything from costuming, which completely disagree. The costuming in that was fantastic, but everything from costume to set design to cinematography to the acting to the actors that they chose, to the story, to the writing. Like, there are people who like literally picked it apart left, right, and center and thought it was terrible and couldn't understand why people liked it. And I loved it. Like, I think it's just tough. Like, there's always going to be, I think, critiques and people who look at films from different eyes. But there's always going to be a spectrum of where they think it's going to be sitting and where it's going to be not sitting. Riverdale is a great kind of view of that, because it started off really strong and then it kind of just dissolved into a weird disaster of a series, but it got more and more popular as it went. I don't know if people were trying to check it out because they were like wanting to see where the story was going, or they thought it was really bad and they were like, I just need to watch it because it's so bad, or they like really thought it was fantastic. So I just think it's you're always going to have critiques. It could definitely make or break a film in terms of where the film or TV show goes. It's a tough one to figure out, though. They've always been there. They're never going to go away. Everybody's going to have an opinion on something, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You can't please everyone. And like, let's say if a show like on a streaming service is airing and like, even if it's bad, but it's bringing so much traffic, like they would want to make a season 2 because like it brought so much traffic, even if everyone's shitting on it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's ones that are like so good, but nobody's talking about it. So it doesn't get a season 2 or a season 3 or season 4.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's tough. It's a weird industry. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. They want the engagement. They want the eyes on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And my last question, super easy one, so we can all relax after, all of this. What do you think it would be the title for this episode?
That's the hardest question yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm. I don't know. I'm thinking of psychic. We've been
Yeah, I
doing
was
a psychic
thinking,
role right now.
where are we going, or like a crystal ball thing.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Where
Yeah.
to
Mm.
now? Yeah.
He's like, make my job easier. Can you name it for me?
Mm,
The art
Shut you
part of my
down.
brain just shut down.
um, let's see here. So we have
The road forward. No? Okay.
um,
I need a
mm,
thesaurus.
so we talked about okay, so we talked about how how the whole industry might be in the next 10 years, right? So so the title could have something with future, right? Because we're talking about the future.
Yeah.
Then we also mentioned about like the whole entertainment. So we can add entertainment with the future, something like that. So it would be
The future of entertainment.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be a good one. Yeah, the
Link
future,
that well.
the future of entertainment. I'll see that happening.
We'll come
Yeah,
up with something. We got this eventually.
yeah. I think the future of entertainment, or someone who, yeah, someone said like a crystal ball, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Randy said crystal ball.
Crystal ball. Okay, so
Because I'm thinking of a psychic.
a sidekick, crystal ball, future. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. All right, I'll tell you what. I will come up with something.
Let
Okay.
AI do it.
Oh yeah. Please.
Just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, not at all. All right. I mean, what can I say, guys? I mean, it's incredible to have you back here and to have like this incredible chat. I love it. I also want to thank those who stayed here or even watch it on YouTube or listen to Spotify or Apple Podcast. Now, in the description below, as I said in the beginning, you're gonna find all of Randy and Vanessa's social media. Follow them both. Make them both viral. They're incredible. They're amazing. And again, guys, thank you so much. Keep killing it. Keep rocking. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.